Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I'm Peter, and that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies on this show. And we are back. We kind of came back already with Jigsaw, but that's because that was a career holdover that we still had to get finished. But this is the first proper episode of November. This is us back after our absence, and we're ready to go. At least we're not as tired as we were a week ago. So,
speak for yourself.
Okay, Tim is, but I'm feeling better. I'm feeling okay. It's November now. The Christmas ads are all over the place. It's not that they completely hold them back before Halloween, but they really let loose with it. Like after Halloween, it's like, here, have all your ads. Because I got some in the theater this week when I was seeing something else.
Okay.
I just thought you'd like to know that, Tim. I
skip Christmas altogether, and for me, right after Halloween, it's instantly Star Wars season. So I'm ignoring pretty much any Christmas thing. It's all Star Wars for me, baby.
I ignore Star Wars season until the movie comes out, and then I go see it, and then after that, I'll review it with Matt, possibly with more people. I imagine Connor at the very least will be inching his way onto that video because he'll want to talk about it, if not yourself as well. And then after that's done, I forget about Star Wars until I have to talk about it again.
What a miserable life. I can't imagine an existence like that.
It is miserable. People don't shop about Star Wars. That's the miserable part. It was like, oh, Star Wars this, Star Wars that. Who's Rey's parents? Who cares? So we're... I'm being a bit facetious here. I don't feel that way specifically. I like Force Awakens, okay? I like Force Awakens. I'm assuming I'll like Last Jedi, but Rogue One left a really bad taste in my mouth, so I'm just not that excited. So, during the October-thon, the month that was, we did a bunch of different movies, and one of the vote winners was The Howling. And because we did the first one, we're like, well, we kind of have to do the sequels now, don't we? We have to work through them over a period of time. So this is the first part of that promise. This is The Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf. AKA...
Say about my sister?
AKA Stirba Werewolf Bitch is the alternate title.
Oh.
Or subtitle. It's still Howling 2 first, but yeah.
Yeah.
Stirba Werewolf Bitch is the alternate title.
Right.
And it has the weird combination of starring Christopher Lee, and you're like, oh, Christopher Lee, that's a good get. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
He turned down Loomis in Halloween. Oh, and he's like a big actor. That's a good get. And then it also stars Reb Brown, whose most notable role is that what's the movie called? It was on Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Not Mitchell, is it?
No. It was like a space movie. They're on like a spaceship, but every scene's shot in a warehouse, and they're riding like little go-kart things, and he screams before he jumps off of it. There's a really famous clip of this bad movie, and it's evading me right now. He's been in a bunch of really bad movies though. He's known for screaming as he fires a gun. That is his thing, which he does in this movie a few times. Yeah. I think when we hit that goal on Patreon, Tim, for the Z movie series where we do just bad movies, I feel like Reb Brown will be appearing quite prominently on that show. But so he's in this, and I actually didn't even realize this until they brought it up in the plot that he's meant to be the brother, because the sister in question, the sister is a werewolf, is actually the main character in the first movie, who's not Dee Wallace. Whenever we see clips of this, or we see like the TV news footage from the end of the first movie, it's not Dee Wallace. It's this other broad.
The werewolf definitely doesn't look like her.
No, the werewolf looks more like her than the actress does.
Yeah. I just meant the werewolf that they show in the clips doesn't look like
the same
way
werewolf.
she looked like the werewolf. Yeah.
You're saying the effects don't look the same. Yeah, it's a different werewolf head. Right, okay. I get what you're saying, Tim. I get what you're saying. I thought you were cracking a joke about the werewolf not looking like Dee Wallace.
Oh no.
Because to be fair, Tim, it's kind of what you'd come out with. It's your caliber of material. I'm pretty sure it is.
Oh, always keep them guessing.
Which is funnily kind of the motto of this movie. It kept me guessing quite a bit.
For God's sakes, please do not ask me any plot-related questions, because
Oh, there's a quiz coming, Tim. There's a pop quiz. So what is Howling 2 Your Sister's a Werewolf in terms of plot? Well, I'll do my best here. So what was her name? Karen White, I think it was, from the first movie. That was Dee Wallace's character.
Right.
It's her funeral at the start of the movie, and Red Brown's her brother. He's there, he's all upset. But Christopher Lee's also there. He's an investigator. He hunts werewolves. And he's all at the funeral like, oh, your sister's a werewolf. Hence the title of the movie.
Yeah.
Just in case you didn't get that. And he's not very happy about it. But eventually, him and his lady friend are convinced, and they go with Christopher Lee to Transylvania to hunt down Stirba.
Famous for its werewolves.
Stirba, who is like this big bad werewolf. I didn't even mean that pun with the big bad wolf, but I kind of landed in it, and now I'm proud of myself. Who's a big bad werewolf who silver won't kill her. That'll take titanium. Okay, sure. And yeah, so they go to Transylvania and they try and find her in her castle and try and kill her. That's the plot of the movie. I mean, that's really, I mean, that's simplifying it. That's simplifying it down to just the core, A to B of the movie. So I'll ask the question.
Yeah.
Tim.
Yes.
Did you enjoy Howling 2? Your sister is a werewolf.
I did for the most part, because it's definitely not a good movie. That's 100%. But it is so off the walls. Like, what were they thinking? That it is kind of entertaining. Although I do gotta admit, I feel like it dragged a little bit at parts. Which is like, for how crazy it was, there were times where I was like.
I want to back you up on that statement, because I feel like it feels like a movie that you could watch with friends and you could make fun of and just laugh at the craziness of it. But at the same time, I fell asleep watching this twice.
Yeah.
It was there are large chunks in the middle where it gets really, really boring, and nothing. And I think it's because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You can't follow why things are happening, so you just start drifting off. I mean, I was 10 minutes late to this recording because I'd forgotten that I still had 20 minutes left of the movie to watch, so I had to go watch the rest of the movie before we came here. That's why, because I felt, I mean, okay, the first time I was lying in bed, okay, I'm kind of in the situation where clearly I was thinking I might fall asleep. The second time, though, when I was watching it earlier today in the afternoon, I was like, no, I'm going to watch the rest of this movie. I was sitting on the couch like a civilized human being, and I fell asleep again.
Yeah, so, I actually watched this in two chunks. One was I also had to take a nap. I just been working more overtime at work, but I got up real early, so like I started watching it at one point when I got home, and like I probably watched maybe like about 45 minutes of it, and then I had to meet up with a friend. But I was like, I really want to kind of get a little nap in before, but. Yeah, and it's kind of weird to say because it is like batshit insane. There's so much like crazy stuff that happens, and again, I think, I don't know if we're talking about it off air or if we mentioned on like the other podcast or something, but I think you had mentioned before about how. Like, they obviously want to do a vampire movie.
Yeah, it's a very clear. It is a vampire movie. The vampires just happen to be werewolves, if that makes any sense. Because it's like they have to go to Transylvania. They have to find a castle. There's weird mystical elements to it where they've got magic powers, which feel more. I mean, I still wouldn't like it if it was in a vampire movie, but it feels more vampire-esque than it does werewolf-esque.
Well, they're in coffins and they're impaling them with not really wooden stakes, but still like
titanium stakes.
It's like close enough where but I kind of love how insane that is though.
I love the idea that someone had a vampire script lying around and went, oh, let's just change the word vampire to werewolf and we'll call it The Howling 2. I feel like that's what happened. And they added in the small connection where it's meant to be the character from the first movie, like she's the sister who's already dead. Like, okay, it feels so. And I want to point something else out. It is crazy and it does a lot of really weird things, has a lot of weird moments, but they do genuinely feel like it's not weird because the director is this weird kind of like, oh, I'm an art, Newhouse style kind of guy who does like weird artistic things that make you think. It feels like they're weird and have really odd moments because it's just down to incompetence, where
Oh, sure.
because one of the first things I was noticing was how bad the editing was. There was lots of these weird little edits that weren't making a whole lot of sense to me, and they felt really out of place and even out of pace as well. Just to sort of say it in a similar way, it would just cut to something really quickly and jump back, and then some of the action scenes, it felt like there was jumps in time, like there were shots missing. It felt like this was a mess when they were shooting it, and then the editor did his best in the editing room to try and cobble it together, and it just wasn't because. So early on in the movie, after the initial funeral, Christopher Lee goes to this nightclub, this bar, to hunt down potential werewolves. And for a start, Christopher Lee, they put these weird, like, sort of retro future style sunglasses on him. It's these like really straight 80s sunglasses that go right around him, and he looks like an idiot. So I don't know how much they were paying him for this. He was clearly the biggest part of the budget. Most of the budget was going to Christopher Lee, I have to imagine.
Well, I mean, when you're doing a werewolf movie, you got to get the name that is synonymous with werewolves.
Yeah, Christopher Lee, who is not associated with vampires in any way, shape, or form. You know him for werewolves. And he's there, and there's this band on stage, and they're playing a song. And they play a song at first, and then they go into another song.
Oh, yeah.
They go into this other song
about this.
About the pale moonlight. I know that they were singing about the pale moonlight because they played this song in the movie about 10 goddamn times. You hear it on stage here, and it keeps playing as some of the characters leave, and it continues into the next scene, which was fine. That was like a normal way to transition out to the next scene, right? And then there's just multiple times in the movie it becomes the theme song where it just starts playing. And not only that, at one point in the middle of the movie there's a montage, and it actually starts cutting back to the performance of the band on the stage, and I'm like, you paid for the rights to this song, you're going to use it for every single time you need a song in the entire damn movie.
Well, I'm sure like the director's brother's band or something, like when they were doing him a favor.
I imagine it was. It's probably like the director knows the band, or they're friends, or they're related, or whatever. But someone owed someone a favor.
Or either that, or they knew, like, okay, American Werewolf in London, they got Bad Moon Rising, and now that's like the werewolf thing, but we're gonna have like our werewolf song, and it's in case people don't remember it, we'll make sure that they leave the theater singing it.
Because they thought Howling 2 was going to be a big enough hit that they were going to redefine what the werewolf song was. And it's not a terrible song, it's just it's there like 10 damn times. It's shocking how often it pops up.
Yeah, I think going back to your point though, like the movie doesn't really look or sound that great, and I think it's kind of probably part of the problem with why it drags a little bit, and it's maybe a little dull kind of in the middle, like it maybe if it's a little more competently made, this could be a really cool, like, bizarre artifact instead of it's like interesting, but
it could be this oddity of like, what were they thinking with this sequel to Howling? But instead it's kind of it's just frustrating enough to actually watch that the stupidity of it can't be completely enjoyed. So it's in this really weird ground in the middle between those things. So that kind of sucks, but obviously there are standout moments and stuff. Now, we've kept this spoiler free, of course. I don't think I gave you the thing at the start where I say, we're going to start spoiler free, and then I'll give you a warning afterwards. But so I mean, I guess, do we go into spoilers? Well,
yeah, I can.
Well, actually, before we get to spoilers, I want to point out, this is something that I think is not spoilery. So this Stirba, she is played by Sybil Danning, who again is kind of a name. Like, I recognise that name. She was a thing once upon a time, and this Stirba, she starts off really old, and then she does like a little magic trick to turn her into a young hot, werewolf.
Like werewolves do.
I almost said vampire there, by the way. So I want to point out that I almost said vampire, and I had to correct myself. And there's like a weird like orgy scene at one point where the werewolves start having sex, and while it's happening, she's not involved, but she just sort of takes her top off. She sort of snaps her clothes off, right, just so that we have her topless. And the director is so proud that he got her to take her top off that the shot appears like 10 times in the closing credits.
The closing credits of this movie are insane.
Which, by the way, the main like core of the closing credits that it keeps going back to is the band on stage performing the song from earlier, if you recall.
It's it's the band playing, and there's like this one shot of her just like ripping off like her shirt and like exposing her breasts that they just play over and over again, like to the point where you almost kind of think like, if you're watching it on your computer, like is it skipping? Like, is there something wrong here? It is crazy.
It's too in time. It's in time with the music. It keeps doing it in the same beat, which is why you know it's intentional. And it feels like, obviously, like, a lot of these older horror movies and even newer horror movies, like, they have this sleaziness to them sometimes, where it's like, oh, we want the girls to take their tops off. But this felt especially sleazy. It was like, oh, I got her to take her top off, so we're going to try and repeat that shot like 10 times in the closing credits. Look at our boobs. Look at our boobs. We got our boobs out. Yeah, we're cool. We got our boobs out. Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to bring that up because it was baffling to me.
It is bizarre. So
I'll give the spoiler warning just so that we can just talk freely about the movie and the plot. So I want to talk about Red Brown. I want to talk about his character.
Okay.
Because so at the very start of the movie, they're at the funeral, and as we're coming out, we don't really hear what he's talking to Christopher Lee about, but he's just angry. He's like, no, go away, leave here. No one invited you, get away. And he's sort of kind of girlfriend, more on whether or not she's his girlfriend later, because there was another part of this movie that really confused me. But she runs after him and asks, and he's like, oh, his sister's a werewolf. And it's like, okay, right. And then, we cut to the bar stuff, and like we see these random gang members or whoever they are get killed, which by the way, so the who was her name? Mariana, who's like the sort of main henchman werewolf who were introduced. She's like this, sultry werewolf character. Again, very vampire-y. But she leads these guys to, obviously want sex, to this abandoned warehouse or whatever it is, because of course. And
construction site or something.
Yeah, and she pops out like kind of naked from behind like some stuff, and then as the two assholes are coming towards, and again one of them has these really stylized like 80s sunglasses on, like a bottle of beer or whatever it is just like smashes him on the head from above, and it plays like a slapstick comedy moment, and I was laughing. And then as he's like angry, he pulls his knife out, and some of the edits here were I was talking about, where it feels like there's bits missing. It just kind of like cuts to the knife being open and sort of stuff. And he's like walking, he's like, who was that? I'm angry. Don't make me angry. And as he's doing that, his friend who's behind him, a plank of wood, just comes down and hits him in the head. And I'm like, this is a farce. This is hilarious. What's happening?
There really doesn't feel like there's much impact. Like, no. These people are being like taken out left and right, and it's like, yeah, it's very funny, and it's like, I don't want a werewolf that's just throwing stuff. Like, one of the plus sides of being a werewolf is that you can really mess people up, but no, just throwing like little things here and there at them.
And this is the first thing that got really confusing for me, because it cuts to Mariana, and we see that she's like sort of halfway transformed. Like, she's still sort of human looking, but she has kind of like wolf features kind of coming in. And then we see the guys be chased around by a werewolf and like rip them apart, and it's like a full-on werewolf. But then mid-attack, it keeps cutting back to her still sitting there being all kind of half transformed. Because at first I was like, I thought that was her fully transformed, but then it kept cutting back to her not being fully transformed, and it did it multiple times, and I'm like, is this maybe like weird little flashback moments, or is there another werewolf there? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, and I really don't like. I don't know. It kind of like makes me anxious. Like, I'm like, just transform already. Like, I'm like, it's worrying me that we keep cutting back, and she's not transformed yet. I don't like looking at this half transformed werewolf.
And she's just watching what's going on. It was weird. And obviously the actual wolves look kind of shitty as well. It's quite clearly just a guy in a suit. They kind of avoid showing the face too much because they don't want to. Don't want to show off. But yeah, so then that's what.
Great.
And it comes back to Red Brown's character. What's his name? Ben. Comes back to Ben and Jenny. Jenny being also someone who's a reporter who worked kind of with his sister. That's why she like kind of is in on all this stuff. But she's like, let's go talk to this guy. Let's go talk to Stefan, Christopher Lee's character. Let's go talk to him. He's like, why do you want to talk to him anyway? He's a cook. He's like, no, I think you may know something. So they drive to his house and they come in. And it's like, oh, can you explain to us why you think his sister's a werewolf? And he's like, she is a werewolf. I have this tape. Because obviously she broadcast herself in the news at the end of the last movie getting shot when she turned into a werewolf. But unfortunately, when the autopsy was performed, they took out the silver. Therefore, she will come back and she'll be a werewolf. And he puts the tape in, and it's meant to be the end of the first movie, but it's obviously been redone with a different actress, and it just, and as you pointed out, a different wolf kind of head.
Yeah.
And like, so he's explaining all this stuff. He's explaining Stirba, and he's explaining the titanium bullets, and they have to go to Transylvania. They have to do all this, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to have to go back to where your sister's buried tonight because she'll come back, and they're going to go there as well. The werewolves will go there." And he shows her like photos of like Mariana and these other people that he suspects are werewolves. And he's like, "Yeah. I'm going to go back and stop this from happening because they're going to like make sure she comes back and she'll be a werewolf and killing people." And he's like, "No, she got herself killed so she wouldn't be a werewolf and so that she wouldn't go and hurt people." So, and by the way, I want to point out, it was when he said, "Oh yeah, I have this tape." That was the point I went, "Oh, it's meant to be the woman from the first movie that's his sister." I didn't know that until this point.
I thought that they mentioned it like early on, but I could be wrong.
Maybe they did, and I just missed it. But like, I really did not know it until he put the tape in, and I went, "Oh, yeah, it's the end of the first movie." Okay.
I think maybe. I mean, bare minimum, I think maybe like at the funeral or something, maybe when they mention like her name, you're supposed to go like, "Oh yeah, the character from the first one." But I mean, if I
don't think it helps that it cuts to the coffin and it's a different actress.
True. Yeah.
It does not help because I never remembered her name. I don't know, and
it's not like a super like I like the first one, but it's not like a super memorable character that much.
Karen White, the infamous main character from the Howling. Yes, I remember her well. But anyway, so he's saying he's going to go back, right? And I was getting to this like Red Brown stuff that I wanted to really complain about. Red Brown's like, "Wait a minute, you're talking about my sister, right?" And he flips out and he's like, "Oh, screw you, guy!" And he leaves in a fit of rage. And she like leaves after him, but she grabs the bullets, and they go back to like their apartment or his apartment. I'm like, at this point they're not a couple actually, so I guess it's just one of their apartments. But they go back to his apartment and they sit down, and he's like, "Do you believe that guy? All that stuff he was saying about doing this and doing that, and like, yeah." And she's like, "Aye," and basically it's like he didn't understand the previous scene, and he's like getting her to explain all of the things that he said, and then eventually. She brings up, "Oh yeah, he's going to go back and make sure with the steel or the silver rather to make sure she doesn't wake up." And he's like, "What do you mean? He's going to stab my sister, my dead sister?" And then there's like a moment's pause, and he goes, "I'm going to kill him!" And he just gets really angry, and I'm like, "What the hell?" He's just jumping around like he's like. I mean, I get why he's motivated to do something about it. I get why he's not comfortable with it. But he just immediately jumps to, "I'm going to kill him." Like, yeah. That's all it is. "I'm going to kill the son of a bitch." Oh man, he was all over the place.
Yeah. Now I will say I kind of like don't hate this plot. Like I like the idea of, at the end of the first movie, she has this broadcast thing, but it's kind of.
It's been buried. It's been covered up.
Yeah, like there's almost kind of like a conspiracy angle to it that I'm like, oh, I think that's kind of interesting. And then I like having, this one old hunter guy that's kind of like, this badass dude that knows what to do and stuff, but he's also kind of a kook and people don't believe him. Like, there are parts of this that I kind of like. I'm
with you with all that stuff. It's when it turns into there's a magical super werewolf who we have to go kill. That's where it completely loses me. Yeah. But so Christopher Lee goes to the crypt or whatever, and as does Red Brown and Jenny. They show up, and he comes in to stop. But then the werewolves attack, and they have a big fight. And obviously, because werewolves attack them, it's really poorly edited. You can barely tell what's going on. He kind of then believes them, obviously. What really cracked me up is they shoot one of the werewolves that's running away, and the werewolf's like down on the ground outside, and Red Brown grabs like a net and just throws it over the top of him. And I'm like, what's that going to do? All you've done is he basically just drapes it across him like a blanket, and that's all he does. I'm like, that is literally doing nothing, Reb. Come on now, you dumb son of a bitch. Let's do this. So basically he dies and he transforms back, and Chris was like, well, I'm going to go and kill the leader, the Stirba. I'm going to go to Transylvania. And so keep in mind that earlier today, Reb was like, I'm going to kill the son of a bitch. He walked in with a shotgun with the intent of killing him in the crypt, and then as soon as he says this, he's like, well, I want to go with you. I want to make sure nothing that happened to my sister happens to anyone else. I'm with you all the way till the end. And then Jenny's like, yeah, me too. And I'm like, I feel like I feel like you just went through like so much like development that you would typically have in the first act or whatever of a movie.
Yeah.
But you condensed it all down to really a few scenes that just didn't make any sense, and all of a sudden we're on a plane to Transylvania together. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the name of the director, but he knows how to not waste time.
I'll tell you the name of the director. Philippe Mora is the director.
Oh.
Yeah, the Philippe Mora. What else has Philippe done? I'm curious. Oh my. do you know what he's done?
No, I'm very curious.
The Howling 3. For a start.
Okay. All right, the marsupials.
So we'll be seeing that one. We'll be seeing what his next Howling movie was like. Oh, that I don't know if that makes me excited or terrified that it's the same guy doing the next one. And then he has done lots of things that I have never ever heard of. I imagine these are all. Hell, he directed stuff quite recently, actually. He's got a movie in post-production that's coming out next year.
Oh,
He's had a long career, I'll give him that much. What was a recent movie? Here's a movie that came out in 2014, Strange Matters. Let's see what this is. Is this a horror movie?
I think it's a Netflix show.
Very good, very funny. Well, it's not a good sign when the image in the IMDb page is a pineapple, and it says to me at the rating, it says needs 5 ratings. So maybe he's making stuff, like he's got credits, but like how much of this is real?
Well, Philippe, you're a friend of the show. We'd love to have you on anytime.
No, he's not.
So good on you.
Oh my God,
if I say he's a friend of the show, he's a friend of the show.
Tim, you don't have that authority to make. You don't have the authority to make that call. By the way, he directed a movie in 1997 called Pterodactyl Woman from Beverly Hills.
Of course he did. Why? When you get when you're sitting at home and there's a ring at your doorbell, and you open it up and there's just a script on the bottom of your steps called Pterodactyl Woman from Beverly Hills, you start shooting immediately. That is not a movie you pass up on.
Which stars the mum from the National Lampoon's movies, for the record.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure we'll be doing that shortly.
Nah, I'm afraid it's a comedy, Tim. We don't do comedies, so it's off the table.
Damn it. Well,
it's off the table.
Maybe we can squeeze it in for Dinosaur Month.
Oh, that's an idea. That's an idea for a Patreon vote. So they go to Transylvania, and Mariana goes to Transylvania as well, and she shows up dressed in like the most absurd way possible. She's wearing like a sort of leather like suit jacket almost, but with nothing underneath it, so it just looks like, yeah, people would be staring at her while she walks down the street for looking so it's not even skimpy in a traditional sense. It's a really specific kind of bizarre, I'm making a statement kind of skimpy,
yeah,
kind of thing.
And now it was definitely out of place, especially since I don't know if I missed this. Like I don't know if there was a festival or something going on, or if everyone
there's a festival going on in Transylvania. Okay. Yes,
because pretty much everyone is dressed up like weird, like I don't know, like Victorian age clowns or something.
Let's not gloss over though. When she arrives, she gets other werewolf men like pick her up, and she gets helped into the back of this truck. And they're driving along, and there's these like 2 hitchhikers or something like that who are like, hey, can we get a lift to the town or whatever? They're going into town, and they're like, yeah, hop on in. And they get lifted into the back of the truck, and we just hear them screaming and dying immediately as the truck drives off. But what I thought, again, this is going back to the shoddy filmmaking, is that you can clearly see them still on the truck, just kind of like looking for a seat, but you hear the screams. It doesn't match. You can actually, if you're paying attention to like where they are, they're kind of just like hunched over looking for a seat still, and you just hear, I'm dying, help me.
I have to go back and rewatch that because I think I missed that. Like I remember like the scream, but I don't remember them just casually finding their seats.
They weren't struggling or anything like that. There was no indication visually that anything bad was happening, and they were still on camera. You could still see them. That's not to gloss over, of course, the entrance to our I grudge calling them heroic.
Heroes.
Yeah, but yes, our heroes make well, not the movie. We've already met them, but in Transylvania, they're driving along a road looking for this town, and the werewolves have set up like a scene that looks like a car accident's happened, like where there's a woman like lying in the road, but they're all just kind of standing staring at her, and they get out of the car to see if they can help, and then everyone like just kind of vanishes, and the woman like starts to wolf out. And like, which by the way, that's the other thing is like they're turning into werewolves in broad daylight in this movie. There's none of this.
Oh, there's no.
Has to be night. It has to be a full moon or anything like that. It's just broad daylight. We can turn whenever we want. And yeah, and it kind of like they fight her off. It ends, and Christopher Lee's like, right, I'm going to go into town. I'll meet you there later. And I'm like, but they're driving into town anyway. Why do you have to go off yourself? And the reason why he goes off himself is because when they get back in the car, it's just the two of them in the front seats. It's because they want to have the scare where there's a werewolf in the back seat.
Oh, yeah.
And this happens so quick. The werewolf pops out the back, they struggle for a little bit. Red Brown pulls out a gun and shoots the werewolf, and then the car suddenly stops, and then Jenny just looks outside the window, looks down, and they're on the edge of a cliff. And then it does like a spiral wipe. If you don't know what a wipe is in a movie or in a video, like an edit, it's like, think of Star Wars is the obvious example where they sometimes do a wipe from left to right to go to the next scene.
Yeah.
Well, this is like a spiral wipe, but there's like a sort of circle like that, and it goes to the next scene that way. It does that, but it does it so quick that there's almost no time to take in the fact that they almost drove off a cliff with a werewolf in the back seat. And it's an example of one of these super random little moments, like insanity.
Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I forgot that they actually do a lot of wipes in this movie.
They do.
And it's kind of weird to pretty much see it like in anything that's not like Star Wars now. It's I don't know, it's distracting, but
I think a regular wipe from left to right or whatever's fine, but this was like a fancy circle wipe. It was like, I mean, this was before computer editing, but like it almost feels like someone like had never used editing software before and went, "Oh, this is fancy. Let's keep using that."
Yeah, it's like when you take your first filmmaking class and like you get like your first like editing equipment or whatever, and you just start going crazy like, "Oh, look at all these effects I can do."
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think there was like other like weird ones, like I think more towards the beginning or something. They had like kind of weird like side angle ones.
Yeah. Do you know, I have people who really pay attention to this in terms of edits. There's not usually a lot of edits. Sometimes if we get interrupted, I'll put in like a cut because we'll just cut out the dead space or whatever. But there's always a cut around 30 minutes or so because the software can sometimes, the video and audio go out of sync. So we always stop at about 30 minutes or so, and then just, we just go back into it, but we just put a cut and then just start a fresh file. It's also good in case there's a technical fault and we lose part of the recording. If we've already got the first like 30 minutes saved, it's good practice. But anyway, the point I'm bringing this up is that there was a cut about 3.5 minutes ago, right? If I can put in a circle wipe for the cut, I'm going to. Just for the fun of it. Cool. just for the fun of it. It'll look strange because it'll just go to us again rather than going to something completely different. But just for the joke, since we're bringing it up. But anyway, what were you saying, Tim? You were going to make some fancy point, and I was like, no, I'm going to do circle wipes.
No, that's pretty much it. I was just saying that, yeah, the wipes were kind of distracting. And yeah, I think there was like some in the beginning that kind of, I don't know, they seemed odd, like to just kind of come up at like weird angles, or they would have, it seemed like almost two wipes going on and like meeting each other or something. Yeah, I don't know.
Baffling.
It's weird.
Absolutely baffling. So Reb, or I should say Ben and Jenny get to the town. They go in, they walk through the festival, they get into the hotel, and the concierge at the hotel is like the first of a few really weird characters who are just really quirky for no reason. Like, I thought they were setting up that they were going to turn out to be werewolves or something because they kept laughing and giggling at things. But this guy is just like, haha, get you a room, yes, yeah. Welcome to Transylvania. And he's always smirking at them. It's like he's intentionally very creepy, but there's no payoff to it. He's just creepy.
I kind of like got the sense that pretty much everyone in the country was a werewolf.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. But he's just like, that's the way he's acting. He's so strange. Yeah. And actually, this is where I was talking earlier on about confusion as if they're a couple or not. Because here, he's like, "Oh, I'll get you a room," and Reb says, "Oh, two rooms," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So they're not actually a couple. They're just like, they know each other because of his sister. She worked with her, and he obviously brothers, so they're acquaintances. But then she says, "No, just one room's fine with a view," and I'm like, "Okay, so maybe it's a will they won't they thing," and that's fine if that's what you're setting up, that they kind of have a thing for each other, but they've not really consummated it yet. Maybe there's going to be some awkward things, or awkward, like, maybe they'll do it now, and maybe they'll confess their feelings for each other. It cuts to a scene in the hotel room where they just start having sex, as if they've done it 100 times before.
I think, we kind of buried the lead here, but this is a very sexy movie. There's a lot of sex going on here.
Well, there's a lot of sex. I don't know if I'd call it sexy, but there's a lot of sex. Most of the sex is like half like transformed werewolf people, so I don't know if I'd call that sexy, unless you're really into the bestiality. In which case, power to you. Just get consent from the horse before you do it.
But yeah, there's like they don't really they don't shy away from these lovemaking scenes. It's pretty in your face, and sometimes and that's probably what the concierge was giggling about, because he knew this was going to happen. Sometimes
they'll cut to the werewolf like orgy just for a quick 2-second shot, and then cut back to the scene that they're on.
We're kind of led to believe that this werewolf orgy is pretty much all they do. Like, in fact, I'm kind of curious why they need to kill these werewolves, because it seems like they just want to hang out, have sex with each other.
No. Oh, which, by the way, reminds me, after she becomes young, Stirba, and she, so when she becomes young, she has like this top on, strips off. That's that scene. But then when we see her later, she comes back with this costume that she has for the rest of the movie, which is maybe a bit too skimpy for this comparison, but it's basically a sluttier version of a Power Rangers villain costume.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks really cheap. There's bits of plastic on the front of it. It's like really ridiculous looking. So from here, after a night of sex, they come out of the hotel. they see a dwarf, a little person who's across the other side of the festival, and he's basically just like, "Come over here."
Yeah.
And he's like,
a real weird, creepy giggle.
And she turns to Ben and she's like, "There's a dwarf asking us to follow him. Do we follow him?" He's like, "Yeah, I guess, why not?" And they follow him off, and he leads them to where Christopher Lee is. Christopher Lee was off assembling his resistance to the werewolf movement. He has like 3 or 4 fighters who have all lost someone to a werewolf in the last year or so. One of whom's a dwarf, one's a priest, and one's another dude who I can't remember. They're not memorable characters. They're just kind of there for various. The little person's the most memorable because he has a few scenes, and he has like a sort of tragic kind of death kind of thing. Oh, Tim got very bright there. He's responding to someone on Facebook, I think, because it got very bright for a second.
I wanted to check something on IMDb.
Okay, that's very bright. That's very bright. I actually, for the purpose of these reviews, if I have it on bright, which is what it normally is, I have this and I have these scan lines. This is just some inside baseball for folks at home. So I actually have a plug-in to make everything go dark, just so that it doesn't make me too bright while we're recording.
Yeah, I just wanted to check real quick. I don't know if you've seen that movie, Don't Look Now.
Yeah, I have actually.
Okay, because this, like, the whole scene with her, like, chasing, like, the dwarf thing, I don't know, really reminded me a lot of Don't Look Now. I don't know if there's any, inspirations or nods to it, but just, like, the idea of, this couple in a, foreign country just had a night of crazy sex, and now they're kind of, like, following this person, which at first I kind of thought it might have been a kid. I wasn't sure if it was like I don't know, a kid or a little person in a weird mask, but I don't know, it really made me think of that movie to the point where I was like, I wonder if there was any type of nod or I don't know, homage to it or something.
Given the standard of filmmaking on display, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say either it's a complete accident or they're just outright ripping it off. One of those two options.
again, we'd love to know, Philippe, anytime you want to come on the show and fill us in. We'd be happy.
Yes, Rip Off Philippe is a friend of the show. Yeah. All these crazy claims now. So they follow. He's got a werewolf resistance. Okay, we're going to make a plan. We're going to try and find Mariana. Because for some reason Christopher Lee knows that she's going to be at the festival tonight. I don't know why he knows that. How he could possibly know that, but he does. So they're going to wait around during the festival and wait for her to show up, and then follow her back to wherever the castle is, so they can fight Stirba. All right, all fine. Okay, sure. They're at the festival, and there's this new guy who is kind of creepy, because at one point they walk past a little puppet show, and this creepy guy turns around to him and goes, hey, very good play, yes. This is Werewolf, yeah, kills the girl, very good. And he's kind of creepy, and I thought nothing of it. It was just kind of randomer. And then the next time they're in the festival, he's still with them, and and Red Brown turns around to him and says, hey, keep an eye on Jenny, I want to go buy her a gift. And I'm like, wait, do we know this guy? Was he part of the resistance? And so he leaves him with Jenny, and then here's the weird thing. He goes off, and the next time we see Red Brown, I shit you not, he's in the woods with the dwarf, and he's gone out because they're in pursuit of Mariana. And I'm like, what happened to buying the gift? It's like there's a shot missing where he was like doing that, and then sees her and goes, oh crap, let's go do that. Like, it just, like, there's stuff missing. And then, sure enough, the creepy guy that he left Jenny with says, oh, I'll take you to him. He's this way. I'm like, wait a minute, he's lying. And then he tries to rape her in the woods. He just turns around at one point, and it's not even like he gets to go where he was planning on going. She's just like, hey, where are we going? This seems like a weird, like, route to take. And he's like, oh, look at the full moon. I would like to make love to you now. And I'm like, what's happening? What is happening? So she gets kidnapped. She's captured by the werewolf. She's the damsel in distress. All right. So we're actually getting towards the end of the movie here. Although I don't want to gloss over the recon mission that Red Brown and the dwarf partake in, because they're spying on the evil lair for the werewolves. So Mariana goes in, and there's this guard outside. For some reason, he's wearing like a sort of a ceremonial hood. He's got like a cloak on with a hood. Or maybe it's a big hat, I can't remember, but it was like, it was like a weird costume. And the little guy pulls out his knife, and he's like, right, I'm going to do this. He's like, with that, I'll cover you. That's what Reb says. He holds his handgun out, and the little guy, I think he's going to sneak up and stab him. That's why he needs covered. Oh no, he just throws the knife and it hits the guy in the chest. And then he runs up, and he pulls out like a morning star and like whips it on his head and kills him. And it cuts back to Red Brown, and he goes, well, that's a new method to kill someone. Actually, it's a really old method to kill someone. I'm pretty sure this was like, medieval ages, like where people were doing this.
It's kind of a shame, because I feel like it all sounds like more fun to watch than it actually is. It does.
Do you know what it is? Because we kind of gloss through the travelling through the festival parts. They feel like they take a long time when you're watching it, where they're just walking through the festival, and it happens multiple times, and it's just like, oh, come on, this. And it keeps cutting back to like Stirba again making speeches and like, oh, we're going to rule the world, we're going to do these evil things, let's all have sex and conquer the... Because randomly, that's the other thing, randomly at one point, Christopher Lee, I think it's in the first scene he's explaining, he's like, oh, and by the way, in 6 days' time, she's going to do something when the moon's at its fullest. It's going to make them all reveal themselves to the world, and werewolves are going to dominate the earth. So we're actually saving the planet. We're not just here for revenge about his sister, we're here to save the planet, because the super werewolf is going to start the werewolf apocalypse. Sorry,
but wasn't like part of the plot the fact that they tried to do that at the end of the first movie, and then they kind of like suppressed the tape, but now it's like they're doing it anyway?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the hero at the end of the first movie wanted to reveal to the world that werewolves exist, and then in this
the moon's not full enough yet.
Yeah, and in this movie, the heroes are trying to stop the werewolves from doing the same thing. You're kind of right. That's actually a very good point.
But just like you were saying, though, I think, I don't know, probably just because of the kind of like shitty filmmaking, maybe that makes it not as fun to watch. And yeah, there's all these draggy parts, but like when you describe it, just these crazy outlandish parts are insane. It would make a really fun movie to watch if it was just, I don't know, put together a little better, or
Yeah, like I still want
just
it.
trimmed up.
I want it to be as silly as it is. Just in that type of movie, it's just the way it's done is just enough to make it boring whenever it's not being proper silly. Like obviously there's a few high points obviously where it does get quite funny, but there's stretches where you're just kind of bored and it doesn't work that well. Because every time Red Brown fires a gun and he screams, like he doesn't. If anything, he's making his situation worse because he's screaming out loud. Like, I mean, sure, they're going to hear the gunshot anyway, but like, there's no need to scream while you're firing it. But it's amazing. Like every time he does it, I was laughing. It's great. So, yeah. So they know where they are. Like, okay, let's go back and tell Christopher Lee. They go back and tell him, like, oh no, she's been kidnapped. And also, it's on the way back that the dwarf, like, for some reason, Stirba has this magical telepathic power which makes his insides implode, and then he becomes possessed, and he's like a zombie who works for the werewolves now, the little guy, and he like is in the festival, and they track him down, and and Red Brown throws him out a window. They chase him up some stairs, and Red Brown gets angry and throws him out of a window.
I think actually this is another like I don't think maybe I noticed it while watching the movie, but kind of as we're going through it, it's kind of sticking out to me too. But it's really annoying when you have a movie and people are like kind of constantly going back and forth. Like it's always like, yeah, they're going out in this guy in the castle, but then they're going back like to the festival, and it's never just like, a straightforward path of like onto the next thing. We're in this next spot. It's always like, oh, we're here now, let's go back and get this other guy, and okay, now we got to go back and do this thing, and now we're back, and it's too much back and forth.
It's a lot of back and forth, and honestly, Red Brown doesn't seem that concerned when he finds out they have Jenny. He just kind of like, okay, and then he's like, okay, right, so everyone's gearing up, so the other two guys who are still there, they get like some swords and stuff, and Christopher Lee's like, all right, take a weapon, Ben, and he grabs the big gun and he's like, yeah, I know how to use this. I'm like, okay, of course you do.
Now, are we assuming that all the guns that they're using silver bullets with?
They have to be, because they're killing werewolves left and right. No, that's actually a really good point. They have no trouble throughout the entire movie killing werewolves. They're doing it left and right like it's so easy. It's so weird. But I guess they must be. They never really explain it.
It's an expensive operation, like, that they're running.
Because obviously they say early on. I mean, maybe that's why at the end when they're going in, he's the only one with a gun, because they only have enough ammo to like sustain the one gun.
True.
And they're like,
they're probably probably like kind of pissed off. They're like, we only have enough silver bullets, and we got to give it to the new guy. Like,
yes, but he's the one
yelling as he's firing.
Yeah, he yells as he fires, so he clearly is the one who should have the gun. I mean, that's just obvious. Because they come in with blades, and I'm like, that seems a bit unfair. But maybe that's why. Maybe there was like a deleted part of the scene where it was like, yeah, we only have like 10 silver bullets, so it's not really enough to give to multiple people. Not that you ever see him reload, of course, because why would we do that? No need for that.
There's plenty of times that he's wasted throughout the whole movie, but reloading, that was his one, like, I'm not gonna waste time doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So they get to the castle, they kind of storm in, the other guys die. Christopher Lee sacrifices himself by walking up to Stirba as she's trying to do like an incantation, stabs her with his silver blade, or titanium blade perhaps, in the stomach, and then they both like get set on fire and burn together. And that's and again, it feels like a vampire movie where you get to the castle at the end, and because okay, sure, you wouldn't initiate it by stabbing them, but the whole idea of like fire also killing a vampire, like that works. So it just kind of feels like that, and that's basically it. We cut back to
Oh yeah, well, not exactly it.
Yeah, we cut back to the apartment back in the US, and again the song starts playing. The band in a pale moonlight, right? And they're back home in whatever city they're in. I can't even remember, if I'm honest.
Not sure.
I don't know. Generic US city, whatever one it is. And they're in their apartment, and it's Halloween for some reason, and. The doorbell goes, and they're very happy. He's giving her a piggyback ride, and they're all happy in a couple. and they go up to the door, trick or treater, and they open the door. It's like someone's got a wolf, and it looks like a genuine werewolf like makeup effect, not a werewolf mask. But they just think they get kind of awkward, like, oh, nice mask, buddy, and they give him some candy, and he goes. They're like, oh, he went into that door down the hall. That's your new neighbour. We should go and say hi and invite him for a wine or something. And like, what, do we have to? Yes, it's neighbourly. Okay. Cute. I mean, I think there's been some that I've missed, but I didn't miss that. No, because I got the weird guy who liked the puppet show who then turned out to be someone who wanted to rape Jenny. He was just like a weird oddity. We had obviously the concierge. Cue the next and final of these just random weird characters. So the guy opens the door who lives there, and it's a priest. And like, oh, we just gave candy to your son. We thought we'd invite you for something. He's like, I don't have a son. I'm a bachelor. But please do come again soon. And he's got this weird creepy little smile. Like, please come again soon. And as they're walking off, Reb just says, yeah, not too soon.
So I guess that kid was a werewolf?
I guess. And then it does the circle wipe out of the scene to the band playing, and that's when the credits start rolling over the band. And we get we mentioned the boobs. Now there's one thing I am so disappointed that I forgot to mention. So we're doing this particular moment out of order, as out of order as we possibly could. I forgot to talk about the opening thing in the entire movie. Before the funeral, before the opening titles, there's a shot of space, and Christopher Lee is superimposed over the top of outer space, and he's got a book in his hand, and he's reading some sort of legend about werewolves. Right. I mean, it might not even be about werewolves. It may just be generally about evil. But he's giving us like a monologue about evil. Oh, and for some reason he is superimposed over outer space, and I don't know why.
The moon is in outer space.
And the pale moonlight.
Yeah, there's like some really weird, like awkward, like dialogues and stuff in this movie, and yeah, just thinking of like that ending scene. It's not enough where they're just like, oh, that's our new neighbor, let's go say hi, but like everything kind of has to have this like back and forth, like, is that our new neighbor? What neighbor? The new neighbor. I wouldn't
say it's exactly what he would write, but it does feel almost Tommy Wiseau-esque in how it, like, they can't just say it like it would be said. They have to dress it up and obviously that can work. Obviously, you get some certain writers who have a very witty style who'll, put in other things, but it feels like that. It feels like unnatural.
Yeah, it feels like it doesn't feel like something like it's written. It feels like asking like people really bad at improv to just make something up and just being like, I don't know. And so should we? Well, can we? I don't know.
I love how bad he is, right? But Red Brown is a bad actor, right? So it doesn't help that you've got someone. I mean, I love him because he does the screaming when he fires and stuff. Like, I really do want to watch more of his movies. I mean, that's something we can look into when we have the Z movies show. But asking him to like give witty dialogue like a delivery, it just feels like such a bad choice. You've done something wrong in your career if you're asking Red Brown to spice up a line of dialogue.
One scene that I do want to mention real quick, just because I kind of liked it, was when they do visit his sister, and she does come back to life, and I just thought it was a cool visual seeing her in the coffin, and they have like this little window in the coffin, and then they kind of close the lid on her, and she's trying to escape and stuff. Not like it was like the best scene ever, but I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I like the way this looks.
That actually reminds me of the first really random like little cut. It's just after like Christopher Lee's like said, oh, your sister's a werewolf after the funeral. It cuts to her in the coffin screaming and kicking for literally 1 second before it cuts to the bar for the song. It's just such an awkward little cut. It feels like you don't have enough time to actually take in that. Oh, is she awake in there? What's happening?
It's really strange. I tell you what, though, if they ever put out like a remastered Blu-ray of this movie that had, well, does it have a like really kick-ass like behind the scenes?
I don't know, because we had to watch this in a scrubby standard definition, unfortunately. But there is a Blu-ray.
Because if if it has like a director's commentary or some making of thing, I would actually be really interested in checking that out because I don't know, that could be kind of cool.
Oh, I'm sleuthing. Okay, Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf, Blu-ray review from High Def Digest. Who put the Blu-ray out? Who's the Scream Factory? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Oh, okay.
So exactly the sort of thing that they'd put out. There's the extras. Audio commentaries, multiple.
Ooh.
Oh, our good friend Philippe is with a DVD producer to do a commentary.
Okay.
The second track is from the composer. What composer? It was that song 20 goddamn times. There was no composition. Shut up. Him and the editor do the second track. There's a featurette about Sybil Danning called Queen of the Werewolves. There is a makeup featurette called A Monkey Phase. And then there's a interview with Red Brown called Leading Man.
All right, if that DVD or if that Blu-ray is not that expensive, I might actually pick that up because I really want to see what they have to say.
So there's some old footage of like behind the scenes stuff in the final fight. But here's maybe what's perhaps very interesting: a alternative opening which is 11 minutes long, and an alternate ending which is 10 minutes long. Those may be quite interesting, given how much of a mess this movie is.
All right. My interest is definitely peaked. As long as it's not like out of print $70 Blu-ray, I'm gonna have to pick this up because I would like to know more about what the heck is going on.
Sam, I'm so curious that I'm even checking that for you. I'm so curious about this. I want to know. Nope, 23.39. So that's the typical RRP or RSP.
That's
I think.
not too bad. Yeah.
I think that's just the typical price. Yeah.
I'll scoop that up and maybe if there's any crazy revelations, I'll have to let everyone know.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not believe that any of the sequels past this have Blu-rays. I don't think, but I was vaguely familiar with this. One of these labels putting it out, so yeah, it makes sense. It's Scream Factory, typically tested, but it's them or Arrow, and occasionally someone else, but usually them or Arrow are the ones putting out these weird horror movies. Okay, so I guess we're ready to rate the some bitch, because here we are. What do you rate this, Tim? What do you rate Howling 2 out of 10?
I'm actually gonna give it maybe a surprisingly decent score, but I'm gonna go like right down the middle. I'm gonna give it a 5 because there's like pretty bad filmmaking like on there, and it can be dull at times, but there's enough crazy stuff that when that is on screen, I think it is worth watching.
I couldn't go back any further. It was funny while I was doing it, but I ran out of room. So 5 out of 10.
Because I think it is entertaining in parts, and like when something so crazy is happening, it is kind of like, okay, like it piques your interest and stuff. But
yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like I can't say I hated watching it because there was some really absurd stuff that just kind of made me go, that's pretty stupid. Yeah. So bizarre. I mean, yeah, because I think a 5 is almost fair for this, just because.
Yeah.
Like if you compare this to some of the stuff B gives like 4s and 3s and 2s to. Like yeah, it might be from a filmmaking point of view, it might be that low, but it certainly was not as bad to watch. Like it's kind of like how Wish Upon was a terrible movie, but we gave it like 4s, which obviously that's still bad, but that was much better than say Annabelle, which the same director did, because at least it was funny bad in times. It wasn't always funny bad, but it was funny bad often enough that it was like, no, I can't rate it too lowly because it wasn't that painful, because I was at least getting a chuckle out of it. This is kind of a similar kind of thing, just slightly more crazy, and therefore slightly more interesting. And because of that, I think it's a curious watch. I think the mistake we both made is we both watched it on our own. I think watch this with friends.
Yeah.
Make fun of it. Maybe have alcohol involved.
I will say, I still liked Christopher Lee. I thought he seemed like he was phoning it in a little bit in this movie, but he's still
he was
a delight to see.
If Skype existed then, he'd have been just like like his part, he would have been like a robot with just a screen that had his face, and he just recorded the whole thing from his house. That's how phoned in this is. If the technology was there to suffice it, he would have done that.
But I can't help but enjoy seeing him on screen, though.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, he's a legend. It's just so funny because he died at such a healthy old age. You know, he was in his 90s before he went. That it's funny that how even in the 80s he was already an old man. You know, I think I kind of forget that when you do grow to be that old, is that you're kind of an old man for like a third of your life, or an old woman, obviously. If you're, I'm saying man because we're men, but well, we're not really. We're boys still. I don't really feel like. Wait, do you feel like an adult? I don't really feel like an adult.
Sometimes, sometimes not.
I barely feel like an adolescent, if I'm honest. Like.
I mean, like some days I wake up and I just immediately start reading comic books and playing video games, and then some days I wake up and have to put together paperwork for a house loan. So I go both ways.
Yeah, but that's since you've proposed. I feel like if you just go back a year, like
sure.
It's tipping the scale. I feel like getting married is kind of the official like, oh, I'm growing up. I mean, it's growing up for a good reason, but it's like, oh, I'm still growing up. Oh.
I'm also I mean, this isn't necessarily me, but I'm starting to have friends that are starting to have kids. So
yeah, I know.
Then that kind of gets into a point too where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go spend the Saturday by going and visiting my friend's kid, and then that feels like a weirdly grown up thing to do.
Are the kids' parents there, Tim?
Oh yeah, of course.
Just checking. just checking. Be vigilant, people. I'm already suspicious enough that your cat seems to be pleasuring itself behind you.
It's just grooming itself.
Tim, I've got 3 cats. Look, he's properly getting into the crotch now. Look at that. He's getting right in for the balls. Is it a boy cat, actually? Maybe a lady cat.
No, that's one of the guys.
That's one of the guys. Yeah, I know you have met all 3 of mine are all male, but nah, it's okay. He was going for his balls.
I got the one girl cat, Damien, and then the other 2 are boys.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, you give it a boy's name just to make things confusing, but yeah, sure. Here we go. So that's been Howling 2. Hopefully that was an enjoyable.
Your sister's a werewolf.
I'm an only child, Tim. So. Mahahaha.
It is just funny that the movie sounds like an insult.
It reminds me of when System of a Down released an album called "Steal This Album." I just imagine it's one of the most shoplifted CDs of all time. Because people are like, it told me to do it. It says it on the cover.
Just look at it. Oh, okay, I guess.
You can't fault a guy for following the instructions. So yeah, there we go. That has been Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf, aka Howling 2, Stirba Werewolf Bitch, which is, they're both good titles. I can't fault either of those. They're both funny. So there you go. So let us know what you think of the movie if you happen to have seen it. Obviously, we will be back with Howling 3, although not too soon. We don't have a deadline to hit with these, so the plan is to do roughly 1 a month. But however, we actually got like 4 franchises we're kind of on this path with right now.
Oh boy. So
you can basically expect a franchise movie once every week. But it'll rotate through the franchises though. So next week we've got number 2 and another franchise. I won't say which one though. You can wait and find out. And of course something else, because we're doing 2 a week. So thank you very much. Look at Tim's trying to remember what they are, because he doesn't even know.
Something to do with some type of shark. I don't remember.
Did we do a shark movie last month, Tim? Because we did the first movie and all these things last month, so it's definitely not a shark movie. Not unless I'm really forgetting something.
I'll double check. I'm sure there's a shark in there somewhere.
That is us, guys. So let us know what you think of the movie in the comments. Like, subscribe, get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz for channel updates and stuff. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mildfuzztv, and you can do that over there. So, no, that's all the plugging. That's all the plugging stuff. So, thank you once again for watching. Keep watching TV. We're not doing TV. Keep watching horror movies. We'll see you next time, guys. I'm getting delirious. It's a stupid werewolf bitch movie. It's put me off my game.